I got it. Sorry. I left my water. I had to go grab it before. One sec. All right. What's up, guys? Sorry, I had to grab my water. As soon as I do this shit without a water, I'll be desperate and worst cottonmouth on the planet. Holiday season. Poop man. They just call me ass man. Yeah, but for anybody that wonders what's all the poop business about, we're not just fixated on poop. There is a ton of new poopine heavy strains coming. I got a whole new drop of gassy, chemi, cushy, poopy, funky, nasty type of strains. Speaking of which, I'm going to give a quick shout out. My homie, it's Dr. Dank. This kid grows some of the best dank weed in Colorado. And this shit stinks. This shit smells like somebody just shit. This Chem Lotto smells disgusting. Probably already ruined any chance of this video not getting flagged. But oh yeah, seeds are going to be available soon. In the next week. The goal is, sorry, Mac, I'm trying. Give me 1 minute. The goal is to get everything loaded onto the website so that pre-orders can happen probably over the Christmas holiday, just like over this weekend. And then I am wrapping up packaging. Hey, what's up, dog?
What up?
I'm wrapping up packaging on some of them, and then they'll be ready probably right around the 1st. The goal is to send them. Somebody was asking about the French toast. I didn't do the face-off. It was the Alien OG French toast, and it's just straight gas. Like it's just, I mean, it literally, like with a lot of those OG strains, I always feel like the goal is to like grab the best of the gassy, that profile, but as little of the headache part as you can. So like there's Triangle Kush, SFV, like all those OGs, those heavy OGs, they're great strains, but they're just a bitch to grow. They usually don't yield well. It's kind of a headache. Anyway, what's up, Mac?
Hey, I want to shout out Gambler for the follow, man. Shout out Gambler Genetics for the follow. Oh man, today's been full of podcast edits and garden work, bro. So I feel a little beat down. I can't even pronounce your name. Dag Haas. Yeah, what's going down, man? What's going down? Dag, D-A-G Ho, Dag Ho, what's going down, man? So what you smoking, brother?
I was just talking about that a second ago. Shout out the homie Dr. Dank. It's Dr. Dank. I met this cat when I was working in Colorado.
Shout out Black Bear.
We both started at a grow like on the same day, and I think I made it a week and a half, and it just wasn't, this particular place just wasn't for me. It was a huge corporate, like super commercial, super, just everything I didn't want to deal with. And so, but I met this kid. He stayed there about 2 or 3 years, I think. And when I say the kid grew some of the best weed I had my whole time in Colorado, that's dispensaries, that's, personal grows, that's homie shit. Like as far as flower, the kid grows dank flower.
Let me see your flower.
This is this Chem Lotto. And Jesus, son, like my light is terrible in here. This shit smells like absolute shit. Like it's got a lot of that like real heavy chem, like spoiled food thing, but it's got this like top end of just spoiledy poop diaper. Like just,
funky.
It's horrible. It's horrible, but it's great. Yeah. Yep. And so that kind of was, somebody was asking about, the new drop coming up and all the poop. Everybody keeps asking me what's up with all the poop talk and why is everybody talking about poop every 5 minutes? And, it's a lot of it is just, that was the easy way to market this drop. it's really not all just poop strains. Like it was kind of, when I looked at what I had available on the website, I had kind of a gap in. Somebody hits me up and they're like, I want gas, I need Kush. And I had a little bit,
Right.
but I didn't have nearly as much as I had like fruity stuff and exotic stuff and, different things. So I try to keep, I think a lot of growers, breeders tend to focus on kind of a profile or two profiles. For me, my whole thing was like, I want to keep every flavor. So if you hit me up and you're like, I want a blueberry strain, I got something. If you want heavy Kush, I got something. If you want gas, I got something. And so I kind of had a gap where, I had a little bit with the white cherry wedding cake line. I had a little bit of Kush and gas, but not enough that I could say, here's what you
Right.
want, So this was a little bit of that, but the goal was generally no fruit, like no fruit, anything. I think one kind of got by me on that, but it wasn't intentional. And then it's a lot of like Kush, gas, chem, poop, just poopy poop.
Funk.
So like, yeah, funk. That's kind of the theme, is just funk, like non-fruity funk. And yeah,
Bots, thanks for the follow. Oh, so yeah, man. We were talking in the DM the other day, and so I guess we can kind of let the people know, man. We're gonna do a special on the poopines on the Businesses Blooming podcast. I think that's gonna be fire, man. Everybody didn't want to know what the poop's about. You know what I mean? So, me and Turk definitely gonna lock up soon. Probably right when the drop comes out, I'll probably drop the episode as well. It'll be kind of like a collab drop. So I think that's gonna be fire for you guys.
I'm gonna try and hit a few this week. I'm gonna hit up the homie Jordan at Growcast and try and get one in with them. Hit up the Weed Man, the homie Weed Man. They're usually floating around in the comments. And just try and just try and hit all the pods that I've done, and like try to get everybody talking about what's going on. So like it's kind of funny because like, if you had to ask me, like, what's the strain of 2023? Like, what was the one strain that defined 2023? Man, I would have a hard time. Like, I could tell you for me personally, but like, I don't feel like there was a single strain this year that everybody had to have, that nobody
Maybe
can live without.
I would say the strain that was pushed, but I didn't grow it in my garden, and no one close to me grew it. Was the permanent marker strain? That's probably would be.
I have heard a lot
Yeah,
of people talking about
that
that,
probably would be.
and it's starting. And I'll say, what's the other one? There's another one that's super frosty that I see a lot of people. Chimera. Have you seen
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one?
That's
But once again,
that
I
ten
don't
thousand
think these
dollar
are.
cut.
Yeah, I don't think these are strains that like. So when I think of a strain that just everybody all year had to have, man, they're usually strains that got around.
Yeah,
So like if three dudes have it, and we talk about this all the time, but it's like if three dudes have it, well, that's cool, but nobody else is going to ever get to enjoy it. Nobody else is ever going to. So if you have it and it's just in your little circle, and that's
yeah,
great. Do what you can to make money off of it. But as soon as it gets out, everybody's going to have it. There's going to be crosses of it everywhere.
yeah.
You
I'm pretty
know,
sure people keep mentioning Super Booth too. I'm pretty sure Super Booth is out here, but what I seen floating around in the shops where you can get clones from was everything was permanent marker. And Trop Cherry too, but I think Trop Cherry was probably more 2022 than 2023. The Trop
but
Cherry
saying
was
that,
fire though. What up, Smoke?
but saying that, when I think about stuff that like people ask me about, it has been this year, I think, a lot of non-fruity strains. So I think like, if runts and cookies and, the Skittles crosses and things like that have really had their time the last few years, and they have. I think the market, when people ask me, like, where do I think the market's headed? I think it's distinctly in non-fruity strains. I think it's, Cushes are always going to be big. They're always going to have a comeback every, so
For
often.
sure.
Gas strains are always going to be hot. People always love heavy gas, and the poop, like the poop and just the spoiled funk terps are
The
making a
rotten.
big move right now. Yeah.
Yeah. So out of your new line, if you want to disclose, man, what do you think is going to be the funkiest of them all?
So, that's tough. I think if we're
I
going,
don't even think, but I don't even think you released the names yet though. So
I
I,
haven't, I'm not
yeah.
all of them. I put a couple of them on my Instagram. I'm gonna drop in the next week. I'm gonna drop the whole list on my Discord. I've kind of been in the past, like I kind of did a lot of this last minute, and it's like I'm trying to get it all done, all the packaging, all everything before I put it up, so that it's just literally easier on me. Um, I think the poopiest smelling one, like if you're just looking for the shit smell, I think it's the Northern Lights Slapper Cross. So that was a collab with I Grow Oklahoma. They took my Slapper, which is a Creme de la Creme white cherry wedding cake, and crossed that to a Northern Lights cut. And man, I've had Northern Lights in the past that had real shitty smelling, you know, but like this motherfucker, this is the
Mm-hmm.
one that has the old lady at the pharmacy giving me the look like I shit in my pants. Bro, I walked into the pharmacy the other day. I walk up to the counter and I knew I stunk. My arms were sticky. My hands were sticky. I knew I stunk.
Yeah.
But I walk in, I walk up. This little girl was smiling. She was happy. She was nice. I was there 2 minutes, put my card in. By the time I walked away, she looked at me literally like I had just shit myself standing there. Like she gave me this look like, motherfucker, go.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
just like, that's the second time it's happened because I had another old lady also in the farm. You know, it's the pharmacy and the dentist and the doctor's office. When you go somewhere sterile and it just smells like clean everywhere and you're the motherfucker that smells like fucking dank, it's
Yeah.
hard to get away from that, you know? So I walk in, I walk over to the pharmacy and it's like, oh, it's going to be just a minute. I'm like, okay, no problem. So there's no chairs. So I stand over in the corner next to this little old lady and I'm just looking at my phone. 2 minutes go by. She kind of looks at me, looks around, looks at me, and she's like, I'll go stand somewhere else. Like, just walks the fuck off. And I'm like,
That's that
God damn
offensive,
it.
obscene,
Bro, pimp,
everybody know what's in your pocket. That's,
pants got me looking like I shit myself.
bro, that's old school shit right there, bro. When you talk about, it's busting out your pocket, you got a fucking gram or two in the console and it smells like you got a whole, I-10 trip in your trunk. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, bro. That
Yeah.
bring that shit back. The fruity shit cool, bro. I'm definitely a fan of the fruity shit, but I do love that nose in the bag, jerk back type weed too, though,
Yeah. I think the days of being able to get by with just basic fruity strains are almost over because there's so many ridiculously complex strains that if you got some shit that's just like, oh, it just smells like pineapple or, it just kind of smells like one thing, that's hard to sell these days. Like people want that complex shit when it comes to that fruit. And it's like, when you look at strains, just particularly stuff that I've worked with, when you look at like the sorbet, the pineapple sorbet, it's hard to look at fruity strains the same way again because
Right.
it's like, I guess it's kind of got like a little bit of a, no, that's not it. Like, if that shit isn't like, it's so
Identifiable.
complex,
Yeah.
you just want to hit it again and again so you could just try and pick out the little things going on. So it would be hard for me to go back and just do strains that like, it's just got a simple profile to it.
Stony Eyes, skunk number one seems like one of those strands that it's hard to say that you got the fair cut. You got the skunk one. And
Now,
even if you do, bro, someone's going to tell you you don't, which
no,
sucks,
here's the
right?
problem. So skunk number one especially is one of those strains that there was probably 20 different places in Amsterdam that sold seeds skunk number one. So it's like, are those all skunk number one? Yeah, technically, but do they all represent like a true skunk type profile? Well, no. And that's kind of the thing with certain
Right.
strains. If it's something that's been sold as seed for a long period of time, then there's probably a million people that have a strain with that name, and they all probably look different. They're all slightly different. It came from different lineages or different seeds. And with something like that, where there was like, there was probably a ton of dispensaries at one point that were selling something that was skunk number one.
Hey,
It's all skunk number one, I guess,
hey, you know what, Goat? The average consumer did just want to get high. But what I think what happened is the market got flooded with so much that they started having choices and they started having like, okay, this is better than this, man. I think people are really coming back to actually giving a fuck what the quality of weed is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think a lot of that is just because you're having so many people producing weed now, whether it's legal dispensaries, home grown, there's so much weed being grown. But at the same time, and we know most of it is not good. So it's like people like you or I that smoke a lot or are really into weed, I mean, you get sick of seeing so much garbage that all you want to fuck with is the better. You know what
Not
I'm saying?
for
The
real.
top tier. So like it's like for folks who really care, there is a certain amount of like there's always going to be garbage. There's always going to be trash. There's always going to be people that
Yeah,
just grow weed
for
that they
sure.
don't really care what it looks like or what it smells like. It's just
And
fucking weed.
they don't care.
But
If they grew it, they got to get it off. So somebody's gonna pay
yeah,
for it. Unfortunately, you know,
yep,
they're not like us. Well, no, I can't sell this, bro. You know?
yeah, bro. There was time. I mean, that's coming up on the other side. That's one of those things where like we never sprayed shit on our weed because we smoked it all. Our
Right.
family smoked it. Our friends smoked it. And there's this disconnect on a commercial level between the person that grows it or profits from it and the person who
For
consumes it.
sure.
And that's a problem when you don't really care how safe the weed is that you're producing in your giant warehouse or whatever it is. Like when you're not consuming it yourself, there's a little bit more of a tendency to just go, it's just product, you know?
The government says it's legal.
Right, right.
You
And
know?
that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like when you look at states, their first immediate task when they go legal, it's not your safety, it's not the efficacy, it's literally how do we get as much tax money from this as we can. So that's the only thought they have when they make the rules and the regulations and stuff like that. So then they start having people turning up in hospitals and shit getting weird, and we can't explain why these people are having this weird vomiting syndrome from smoking weed. And then it's like, well, then we instituted pesticide policies, and that shit started going down.
And
And it's like you don't care about the
I
quality of
mean,
the weed; you just
and
care about getting money.
truth is, man, you don't know that. Tantric Gardeners, thanks for the follow. We really don't know what's gonna be the outcome of us smoking facility weed with those regulations in place until a few years later, right? Because think about Roundup, man. People were using Roundup when I was little, all the way until I was grown, and then all of a sudden, hey, you know what? There's this carcinogen in there that causes cancer. It's
Yeah.
proven, you know.
It's one of
So
those things that, like, if you go to the grow store, and it doesn't matter if you're running a closet grow or if you're running a 150,000 square foot facility, if you walk in and you go, man, I got bugs and I don't know what to do with them, 99% of the time, the first thing they're going to offer you is the nasty shit because it works and it's efficient.
right,
It's not safe, but it works. It will kill your fucking bug problem, right? Until it doesn't. And so many times people don't know what they're doing. That's where they go to get their information.
yeah.
Like so many people like you or I might go online and research and things. So many of these people just go to the grow shop and just go, hey, what do I
What you
need?
got?
Well, when you're asking the person who profits from selling it to you what you need, they're always going to give you, they're not going to take your safety or, they're not going to take anything you into consideration. They're just going to help you solve your problem as quick as possible. So many times I've been in the grow shop and I heard somebody come in and go, oh, we got PM, we don't know what to do. Well, here's your Eagle 20. This is what you need to use. And it's like, fuck,
You
man.
tend to get more, and that's why I really preach support mom and pop shops, because when I go into these mom and pop shops around here in Virginia, it's more friendly. They talk, they converse with you, they try to figure out what the problem is. So when you go to these big marketplaces, I'm pretty sure they're just gonna point you in the direction of bud kill.
Yeah, right,
you know,
right.
you know, I'm pretty sure if you spray Raid in your garden, it's gonna work. It's gonna kill it.
Yeah,
But is it healthy for you? You know,
yeah, no, no. No,
no
and they
one
usually don't
takes
care.
the
I mean, like,
time to
you said,
research.
if
Nope.
it's a small spot, it's a little bit different. But if you're going into, big hydro grow store and you just ask them, like, hey, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. What do I need? Man, I've seen it more often than
You know
not. They
what?
give
I'm
you
pretty sure facilities aren't going to mom and pop stores to get their.
no, oh, no, no, no.
Yeah, you're
Most of the
right.
big grows
Wow.
shop at the biggest hydro
Yeah,
stores around because that's usually where they get the best deals on gear and shit.
for sure, for sure.
But yeah, it's one of those that like it's as a new customer in a newly legal state, and we talk about this all the time. A lot of it is like know your product, like know what you're buying, who you buy it from. If you go in and you ask a bud tender, like, what pesticides do you guys use? What kind of, fungicides do you guys use? Do you have a lot of powdery mildew problems? They just look at you and they just don't have answers,
I
or they don't
I
have
don't think they would have answers.
yeah, go
I don't.
buy somewhere else. Go buy somewhere else because so many of those grows when they first open up, the way this happens in every single legal state, they don't issue enough licenses right away because they want to take a let's see type of approach, right? So they issue a couple licenses and those producers can't grow enough weed fast enough. So those first couple of crops are literally just turn it and burn it because we don't have enough product and we can't meet the demand. Inevitably, most states, if that aren't Florida, eventually realize we need to open this up. We need to open it up to other licensees and make more, And so then almost every state does the same thing. They issue too many licenses. And that's not really a big deal, other than in the fact that now you've got a super saturated market, and the fight now becomes who can grow the most weed cheapest. And when you get into that game, the minute that's your goal,
I think
the minute the
quality is
most
affected.
weed cheapest is your goal, all the quality
Yeah,
shit goes out the window.
yeah, because people start cutting corners the same cost.
Right.
You know, or you won't survive.
Right. And at some level, that's the game. Like that's the meta game of the weed game, is being able to operate within those tiny little margins. And that's why so many of these grows are going out of business so quickly, is because they don't hire somebody who understands the entire business. They either hire a grower or they hire, they don't have people at the top. The people that usually run these grows are usually money people, usually people that made money in real estate, made money in, in other areas that aren't weed, which isn't the end of the world. Like most businesses aren't run by people that are, super, that's their thing. But at the end of the day, in the weed business, it's a little bit different because we've seen what happens when you don't have people with experience running your grow, and it doesn't work. It doesn't go well.
Right.
Inevitably, you need people who understand not only just weed and growing weed, but that understand the ins and outs of the weed business in a legal way. Everything
Would you
from
go back?
compliance to
Would you go
what's
back
that?
to running the operation?
Not for somebody
No.
else. I mean, it would take a lot. It would take a lot of money, and it would take the kind of money that most places aren't willing to pay. And it's just simply because I couldn't imagine going and working for somebody else again. Like
Sure.
that's,
For sure.
I would. Here's the thing, man. I always loved and I always had a lot of fun in big grows. Like once you've done it and you stood in a room where you can't see the other side of the room
Yeah.
and it's just all filled with dank weed, I mean, that's cool as shit. It's really cool. But you hit a point where you go, what are we doing? Like it's easy to just grow shitloads of weed. Like that's not that tough.
Hmm.
But to grow shitloads of really, really good weed, it's a lot tougher, man. And it takes it almost takes ground up building a facility for just pretty much growing weed. It takes people that are in the know, that know what they're doing from the top down. It takes people that are passionate and that really love what they're doing, but they're also being taken care of.
Right.
Because when you have people in a grow that are just being treated like commodities and they come in every day and they think their job could just be over tomorrow, man,
Right.
people start stealing,
Right.
just your quality goes down. They don't care about your plants anymore. And it really does take a team of people that really care about growing weed to grow really good weed,
Man, I don't know. Snow till shit. I've been smoking on this nice ass joint, so I might be talking slow. But he says, is it just him or is the sound slow?
What's that? I'm
They
baked.
say we
Sure.
how are we coming? You coming in fine, guys, or no?
So anyway, I kind of pissed in the hornet's nest today with the fucking sour diesel shit.
What would you say? I seen
I just, man,
it,
it was
but I
another one of
I didn't
those.
really have an opinion.
It was another one of those things where, like, the last 2 weeks, I've seen probably 15 people arguing about fucking sour diesel, arguing about where this shit came from and who's got the real one. And so I think a lot of it has been kind of, so I don't know what you know about reservoir seeds. I don't like to get into shit like this because most of it ain't my business, but we got nothing to talk about, so fuck it. So Reservoir Seeds is essentially a seed company like in the late 90s and the early 2000s that had some connection to like the chem line. And once again, I don't care to get into ins and outs of who and what and where and why. But this dude apparently snitched on some people and disappeared like from the weed scene from like for like 20 years, for like 15 years, 20 years. And recently has popped back up. Not only, well, say probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, I noticed this dude had made a page again, like on Instagram. And
Mm-hmm.
it was the same shit the dude had gotten for the last 20 years when he would pop his head up, was like snitch and fuck this and fuck you and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's more drama than I ever care to hear because they're all arguing over bag seeds. And I think that's just the funniest shit on the planet. But so essentially what happens is he pops back up recently and is starting a seed company again, you know, like full-fledged, like I'm back, everybody else's shit's the junk, like I'm the only one that's got the real cut, like all of
Yeah.
y'all are just faking it and like all this. So, you know, I joked the other day, I'm ready to see the fucking cage fight between Reservoir and JJ now, that they're going to get in a fucking cage and fight it out over who's got the real sour diesel and who's got the real, you know, rights to sell this out. Who gives a fuck? Who gives a
Do you like
fuck?
sour diesel?
I don't give a fuck. It's all right. I mean, it's one of those strains that, like, you know, I've had it. I had it in 04, 05, 06. I had it when it was great and everybody swore it was the greatest strain on the planet.
Yeah, Tim
Uh,
Dog did come
it's
from a backseat.
yeah, all those chem strains came from bag seeds. All of their hybrids, all of the
Mm-hmm.
crosses made with them, they've all fucking, you know, my wife just messaged me because I try to stay away from this whole topic. And yeah, but fuck it, man. I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of all of it. And here's why, man. Like, if you were talking about a strain that in 2023 or going into 2024
Right.
matters in some sort of way, that might be different. This is a strain that's 20 some years old now. It's exhausted. The cuts that people have that are still legitimate are not. Sorry, man. I don't know what that was. My power keeps going out. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
super weird. I don't know what that was. My power just like flicked on and off 4 times. So anyway, long story short, so all of these people have been arguing about this strain for ages now. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't know if there's a right answer anymore. That's so weird. I don't know if there's a right answer anymore. It's 20 some years of conjecture, of back and forth, of like, you know, like nobody really knows who's got what and what is what anymore. And there's just so many people that just want, you know, I think what it comes down to, everybody wants to have something that nobody else
Of
has,
course.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when it's some old school shit and they can make bank off of it. Right? It's all just about being able to capitalize on it and have the one that you can charge the most money for. And I've said for years, that's why all those dudes get so angry about people using their seeds and their gear, is because they probably paid some stupid amount of money for the right to be able to use these bag seeds. And hey, let's be honest, there's a couple of people out there that have probably made a very handsome living on the back of those bag seeds. So it's no hate whatsoever. It's another one of those things that when we get into these deep trenches about who's got which cut and whether this is the real cut and whether that cut is garbage or whether my cut is the only cut people should be paying for, just understand that's just marketing. It's all people marketing. It's all people trying to make sure that they have the only cut so that they can charge the most for it, and they can be the one that you've got to go to get the only one. And it's just like, make something new.
Right.
Make something original.
I don't know,
Like, stop.
man. I've had sour D. I've never grown it. I've never had much want to grow it, but that's probably because I'm more new school. You know.
The problem is that it's first of all, it's bag seed, so everything that comes with that, it herms, it's lanky, it's not a great and easy plant to grow, and that was 20 years ago when it was new. Now it's been cloned and cloned and cloned and cloned and cloned, and it's like those OG cuts. Can you still grow dank with them? Yeah. You're not going to get great yields because the cuts are so tired. And to be honest, they're probably best used as hybrid material because as they sit, there's so many problems with them that could be dealt with decent amounts of breeding. But I don't know, man. I see this a lot. It's almost always with old school strains,
For sure.
and it's always with shit people now want to be able to say, I'm the only one that has it. So you've got to come to me to get it. When in reality, if it was that great, everybody would have it by now and we'd all be sick of it because it was that great and it got around and everybody fucking had it. And it's just another one of those where like 5 dudes have it and I don't feel like it's worth arguing over. Like
Right.
there's great sour strains out there. It's like skunk. There's great skunky strains out there that you don't have to deal with the bullshit of skunk. There's great sour strains out there where you don't have to deal with the bullshit that comes along with growing these long 12-week strains that never really look like they finish all that much, Like it's one of those. You've got the time for it, please, by all means, passion project, run the shit out of it. I don't have 2 extra months to dedicate to a single flowering. I just don't. And I don't have the passion to
That's kind of how
wait
it is
for
in the
it.
camp, man. You got to perform or you get gone. If you don't perform, and you get one run.
Yeah,
You get one run. You get one run with everybody, and if everybody is doing better but you, then you leave.
yeah. And somebody nailed it, man. Somebody said, we've talked about this before, you're chasing a memory. Like, it's not necessarily that you're chasing a particular strain, because so many times when you find them, you kind of come to realize, like, you know why it was so good? Because I didn't have any tolerance back then, and I was in high school, and everything was kind of cool, and all the good music was on the radio, and, I was hanging out with my girl all the time that I really
It was just a
liked, and
better time.
we smoked that shit. It was good times. And the reality is you're chasing that time again, but that's over, bud. It's over. All of that, I want to feel like I did 25 years ago thing. I mean, I don't know that there's anything more cringe on the
So,
planet.
so let me ask you this: so, is there a certain strand from back in the day that still stands the test of time, in your opinion? Because
Man, they
most
all
people are gonna
have a
say Blue
place.
Dream, and
They
Blue Dream
all
is not all that much to me, bro.
Yeah, they all have a place, man. But I just think in the 21st century, we have to look at strains like what do they bring to the table versus what kind of problems do they have. So if all they bring to the table is a nice profile that we like, but everything else about it is kind of a fucking headache, well, let's find that profile in a better plant.
So I'm gonna
Like
be
let's
honest
find
with you.
a profile in an easier to grow plant that's not 12 weeks and gets 20 feet tall. Like,
So
it's not that
remember,
hard.
we used to always speak about cookies, and always tell you I never grew it. So I know I got the original form cut cookies. I tell you this, beautiful plant, frosty, but the yield isn't there. You
No,
know,
it's trash. Yeah, it's
it,
not a commercially viable
it's
strain.
not. And I'll tell you what it is. It's head stash. I
Yeah,
learned that word the other day. It's
yeah, yeah,
head
yeah,
stash.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
some
yeah.
supreme head stash. I give you that because, in my opinion, it's gassy. Great taste to it. Easy to grow, but and that's my thing, bro. For how well it grew, I feel like it didn't produce.
No, it
You know what I
doesn't.
mean?
Now,
Of
even if you
course,
throw it
I haven't
down,
stacked up to two monsters right now. You know what I mean? But I got to admit, again, it has its place. You know, it's head stash, no
yeah.
doubt.
Well, the thing about that one, and that's another good example of a strain that, like, 20 years ago, man, that strain was crushing because people hadn't really
Yeah,
seen
great smoke.
huge resin like
Great
that.
smoke.
And there's so much of it that now we've got tons of hash plants. We've got gassy hash plants. We got cookie hash plants. So all of these strains where you look at it and you go, well, it's pretty, but, well, we got better strains now. So you don't have to deal with all the but.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same
Hey,
thing
but
with stuff like
I
this.
want to know, and I want the chat to answer too, Terp. So, what do you think is a strand that stood the test of time right now? And chat, help me out with that too.
20-year-olds, a 20-year-old strain that people are still dying to run today. Man, I think the notion is that the way the market moves, I don't have an answer for you, bro,
Yeah,
because the long story
yeah.
short, I mean, there's still Northern Lights is having a resurgence 20 some years later, but I don't
Head,
know that it's anything
headband.
everybody's got to
Headband's a
have.
good strand. Headband's a good strand.
It's
Head,
another one of those
yeah,
that's
CP4.
it's a mostly sativa strain that has some problems. Headband, it's another one. It's pretty. Nobody's got it.
How
12
old
people
is
have it. Probably not going to run it.
Granddaddy Perp? Because
Shit,
who?
I was probably I was probably in high school the first time I smoked that shit. So
Well,
like
I'll say
98,
Granddaddy Perp.
99, 2000, 2001. And they were probably
Bubba Kush,
growing it way before that in California. But it was like the late 90s when it really had a big heyday, you
White
know,
Widow,
early 2000s.
White Widow. I would say
I've
Bubba
never seen,
Kush.
I got to be
Barley, you
honest.
on to something.
I got to speak on something right now. I have never seen a white widow that impressed me. And there's only been one strain that had white in the name other than the white, like all of those Dutch white strains from back in the day. I had a
White
great
Rhino.
white shark.
Oh, great.
I never had a white rhino that was great. I had a great white shark one time that was unbelievable, but it was just these little teeny tiny like popcorn nugs, but it was frosty as shit. But like I've never had a white widow that really impressed me. It all looks like old school Dutch weed to me, which is just today doesn't impress, you know?
Hey, the comments fire, man. I like green crack. I definitely would say. I would
It's
say
a
Bubba
good strain.
Kush. I don't
Bubba
see
Kush.
really very many
Yeah, that's
people
a good one.
growing. I don't see very many people growing train wreck. I've never grown train wreck, so I
It's
can't
a
answer to that.
fickle bitch. The real train wreck is a fickle bitch of a strain to grow. And anybody that's ever run it will tell you there's a reason people don't run it. Because it's an all right profile. It's kind of neat. The first time I ever had it, I thought it was great. But people that have run it, and I've run it once or twice, and I've run a bunch of hybrids of it, and it's a bitch of a plant to grow. It just grows. It grows really leafy from the bottom all the way up. So it's one of those strains that, like, if you try to lollipop it, it just doesn't perform as well. You know, it gets really weirdly leafy in ways, and then it herms like a bitch. It just herms like a motherfucker.
Hey, Alan, do you think that America killed the coffee houses in Amsterdam with flooding all of our genetics over there? Now, I'll tell you what, when my time living in Europe, that's all they really wanted was American strains.
Yeah.
They would give away all of their
Yep.
shit for just one of my packs of Turk Fiend. I left Turk Fiend shit in Spain, all type of shit, you know? So,
Yeah. So that's
what's your
definitely, I will
opinion?
say, American genetics have taken over the world stage. There was a time where all of the genetics in the world came out of Amsterdam, and now everybody in Amsterdam wants nothing but American genetics. Chems,
Yeah.
OG, Sours, cookies, Skittles, all of the shit that we're now sick of and taken for granted, they're dying to get their hands on and to run in other countries because
Yeah.
that's the hype. That's what they hear about, you know? That's the Hollywood.
Bro, I like cookies, man. Everybody hate on, and again, like I said, I've grown cookies now, so I can speak to it. I will say that it did not produce the way I wanted it to. At least the cut that I have, that's forum cut. But is it some head stash? Fuck yeah,
That's
it's some shit that
gorgeous,
like,
right?
man, I wish I had more of it. You know, so I can't say cookies destroyed
So
that shit. I won't say that,
there's
man. I'll say
here's
the
the
patch
thing.
did, but
There's a couple of strains that I joke that if you're a breeder, it's almost like a cheat code to easy hash plants, right? So cookies, purple punch, slurricane, Tropicana cookies. These are just strains that if you cross something to it, you're almost guaranteed it's going to be a 5 to 6% washer. It's going to throw down. It's going to be heady. But the reality is, these kind of strains make the best crosses because they have that trike that you want. They have that big head, easily separates from the stalk trichome that you want, but the profile itself isn't overwhelming. So with cookies, the good thing about cookies is the profile is kind of gassy, kind of doughy. You know, it's
hmm
got kind of like a sweet gas thing. I always joked it was like OG light, and it kind of is.
yes.
But like,
Okay, smoke. I understand. Yeah.
so it's not so overpowering that you can't cross other stuff to it. So cookies, the reason it's in everything is because by itself it's kind of a bitch, but when you make crosses with it,
Yeah.
that resin is just stupid. It's just stupid. That's why people are still working with it 20 some years later, you know?
Yeah. Smoke said cookies to cookies to cookies to cookies is killing it. I agree. I I agree.
The thing is about cookies, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, it's the biggest cannabis marketing brand in the world. So when you go to places where they don't know anything about good weed, they got a hot topic selling cookie shit. They've got cookies. They understand cookies. So even though when you and I are talking about cookies, Girl Scout cookies, the forum cut, most people just hear cookies and think the brand. And
Yeah.
that's what
Right.
so many people I think are really sick
Fact.
of is the
Fact.
brand cookies.
Fact.
Because not only are they the biggest marketing brand, but because they spend the most actual dollars on marketing, they're the biggest knockoff brands. So when you go to wish.com, there's nothing but cookie packs everywhere and cookie stickers and cookie shit to make your own cookies because that's the biggest brand that people knows. So much of
Hey,
what's being sold as cookies isn't really cookies.
cheese is another one, man. Cheese is another strand that you never have the real cheese. But I would say cheese is a strand that's stood the test of time as well, though. But you never have the right cheese.
There was an amazing cut of the Exodus cheese that used to be at one. There was one dispensary in Denver that had it. They didn't put it out. They didn't share it. You couldn't get it, but they would drop it as extracts and flour. I've run a bunch of cheese, like different cheese that had more cheesy profile to it. I was always amazed at how fruity the cheese, like the Exodus cheese cut is.
hmm
But to be honest with you, man, like I will say about those Brits, man, they love their skunk. They love those cheeses. You know, those strains are still really big over there, and for good reason. They're great strains. You know, they're really good strains. But I will say that's another strain that its heyday was 20 years ago. You know, I don't know that people are just dying to get it today like they were 20 years ago. Even in the UK where it's much bigger than it is in other
Yeah.
places. I think what happens is those old strains always have a place because there will always be people that have those memories and just want to keep them going. And I have strains like that for me, like Deep Chunk I work with because it's an old school strain. It's unhybridized. There's a lot. It means a lot to me to work with it and to offer it, but it's not a commercially viable strain. It's not a strain I tell people to fill your grow with. You know, it's a
Really?
great medicinal strain. But at the same time, those strains are more valuable to breeders because they really are those old school building blocks. And if you start with those old school strains, then making new and unique stuff is a lot easier. So it's like if
Easy.
all we had is the new shit, then it would really be garbage because all we'd be doing is just banging that together. But for so many of us to be able to go back even a little bit and find some of these older strains, whether it's, you know, my beef with sour diesel specifically is more A, it's a bag seed, and B, it's just so much bickering and bullshit. Like it's not that I'm against old school strains
Yeah.
because there's so many of those that I loved and in the day enjoyed, and today I still work with them. You know, I still go back and try and take newer stuff and older stuff and kind of mash it together, you know? But I think when you start getting bogged down in the bickering of the legitimacy of it all, that's when you really lose me because I don't give a fuck. I'll just wait until one of you guys that has the actual strain makes a cross with it, and then I'll just use that because
Bro,
you validated it for me, and now I can just use yours, and I don't give a shit about all the bickering and the bitching and the crying.
Easy Peasy like said something that really, really I think affected the game, and it kind of ticks me off is the pack game. You know, buying packs online and putting booth in there and calling it this, bro. I think that's what killed a lot of brands and a lot of the strands too, because you know people buy with their eyes, man. They
Well, they're
don't really know,
buying the
like,
sticker. They're
right.
not buying the weed, they're buying the sticker.
And I think that killed it too, man. So definitely, bro. Shout out to you for recognizing that those packs is just some bullshit.
Somebody said they crossed Deep Chunk with Acapulco Gold. That sounds like an interesting project. What's kind of weird about those old school like Acapulco? I ran a bunch of Colombian years ago. It's a weird profile. It's like really that old school peppery, spicy kind of thing. It's interesting. This shit will get you fucking waxed, like just high as shit. But it's definitely an interesting profile. That's a very traditional hybrid though. It's a, you know, heavy indica with a heavy sativa. You're gonna find some really cool stuff there, but it's not gonna be a super unique flavor profile. You're gonna find two or three Kush, haze. That's about it, you
Yeah.
know. Let's see where
Would you work with Hayes?
Short answer, I'm not in any hurry to. Like, I have
I
a
would.
bunch of hazes. I have a bunch of sativa stuff. Um, I kind of put on the whiteboard for 2024. Like, I would almost like to try and do one heavy sativa round. And when I say that, I'm still probably trying to find like 10-week plants. You know, I'm not trying to get into 12 and
I would love
14
to
week
see what
flowers
you
or
can do with
something.
the haze, man. Because the haze already comes with a complex smell and taste as well. And you know, with some terpene vibes to it, I think you might be onto something, bro. I would love to chase the haze from the terpene house.
Yeah, I think like with anything I do, if I were gonna try and do something like that, I would try to elevate it. Like I would try to, you know, because like everything I do, I try to avoid one note profiles. So if you can kind of describe the profile real easily, that's not for me. I want to
Yeah.
try and make shit that if it's hazy, I want to do haze and something else. Like so, I want, you know, and it's definitely something that could happen. I am thinking about doing some more sativa stuff. That's another gaping hole in my collection or my offering.
Yeah, for sure.
It's more because it's just something I don't have a passion
For
for.
sure.
It's something that takes a whole different kind of philosophy of growing,
I
and you know,
think
it's
Sativa's
not.
making a huge comeback, man.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of my people have been like really requesting Sativa type Diamond Strands, man. It's crazy.
it kind of goes back to like why Blue Dream will always be popular. It's because technically it's a sativa on paper, but it yields huge, and so it's like it's commercially viable and most people can put it in their jars and say it's a sativa, and they're not wrong. I mean, it definitely has more sativa effects, which is kind of funny because it's a blueberry haze hybrid. But it's one of those things that just, it goes back to like, what are you looking for? If it's one note and you're just looking to get baked, well, there's tons of options. But if you're really trying to find something unique that's heavy sativa, that's different, that has something different that people are going to want to run, and that's the trick with sativas, is most sativas aren't super heavy yielders, so it's a passion thing.
Yeah.
And it's finding that balance. Like, when I think haze, we got to have two different discussions, right? Because there's two different hazes. There's the old world haze, which is a spicy, almost burns your nose, peppery thing. And then there's the new world haze, which is like the ghost train haze, which is more of like a sweeter, kind of unique, different. Yeah. And so the old world haze interests me more as a profile, but I have less interest to run those plants because they're usually the tall, lanky, low yielders. Whereas the sweet haze is after they started banging the haze into the Afghans. That's why it kind of became sweeter and things like that. And those early, Amsterdam crosses, when they were making a lot of those early strains, that's where a lot of those kind of the more growable hazes came from. But those profiles don't really, I don't know, man. That Golden Goat Ghost Train Haze thing, it just was never for me, man.
Yeah.
And I get why people like it, but just I don't know. My wife loves sativas. If it were up to her, that's probably all I'd ever deal with is sativa stuff, because she loves it, and as a profile, she's cool with it. And but for me, it's all about flavor. Like, if I could find unique flavored sativas, and that's what would interest me, is like digging into some of that older world stuff and trying to find that stuff that's just got those big oily heads. Because that's where all the biggest trichomes came from, was largely sativas, equatorial sativas, Southeast Asian sativas. Like, this is where we got a lot of our big hash plants, big heads, right? And so that's the kind of stuff that would interest me, but like, I don't know. I just want to bang everything with Kush and just be faded on Kush all the time, and my breath smell like Kush all the time. And then I'm happy.
For sure.
Right? I mean, that's, I always say, if it was just up to me, I'd just cross everything to banana and Kush and fuck all the rest of it. But it's not up to me, because I often have to make things that other people have to purchase. And so I have to kind of think about it from like, it's a marketability thing, but it's not like, for me, it's like, I'm not trying to make a strain that's going to become the next big thing. It's more of, I want to create something unique. Like, I want to make something that can impress even the most seasoned of veterans. And if it impresses me, I usually think it's going to impress other people, because I'm picky. Like, even picky people tell me I'm picky. And there's a little bit of like, I'll sit in a room and look at other people's shit they're smoking, and I'll be like, yeah, I just won't smoke today, guys. Y'all have a good one. If these are my options, I'm not, and it really is. And it's like, that's how I've always looked at selection, at, plants that I want to run, at anything that I'm doing, is like, is it something that impresses me? Because if not, cut that motherfucker and find something better,
Right.
Anyway. We're down to 5, man. Let's wrap this shit up and get out of here. Next week will be right after Christmas, right? Yeah. Maybe like right before New Year's.
Yeah, for sure. That should be a fire show.
Yeah, for sure. We'll put something good together. Where can I find you?
You guys can find me at Instagram at The Real Mac Blunts. You can find the Business is Blooming podcast on YouTube and Spotify. Be looking out for the episode I'm going to drop with Eli Harrell from the San Francisco 49ers. We talk about his days of home planning with D'Amico Ryans. We also talk about, just all industry stuff, man, and healing and stuff like that, bro. I also got a show with Rasta Jeff from Ari Genetics dropping soon, too. So you guys be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, man, I caught the one you did the other day with, was it the Cannabis Brothers podcast?
Yep.
That was really good, man. That was a really good one. I don't get to catch a lot of these because when they pop up, man, I'm usually doing daddy stuff or doing, other important stuff. And I actually got to sit down and catch that one, and you did a really good job. I thought it was really good.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.
Uh,
If you guys are not already following me, please do so, man.
oh
And
yeah, for sure.
just
Give my man
like
a
I said,
follow. He's on Twitch. He's on, he's always playing video games too. I really got to get more into like streaming games.
yeah,
It's so hard for me to sit down and play an hour at a time,
bro, it's
forget being able to
more
do it
equipment you
for a
gotta buy.
while. But what's that?
I said it's more equipment you gotta buy, to stream your
Yeah,
game
yeah,
and shit.
yeah. Yeah, well, anyway, www.turpfiend.com, TERPFI3ND.com. We're running a huge holiday sale right now. We're about to drop a huge new line of poop, gas, chems, heavy strains, Kush heavy strains. So keep an eye out. Here on my Instagram, turpfiend_, genetics. You can find all the rest of my link tree and all of my other links and go follow us somewhere. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next week. Love you. Peace.